Meanwhile, on the comic box. Comics. Hey everyone, and welcome to a very short edition of the Comic Box. I'm Rob, your friendly neighborhood comic geek, and we are just about out of space for the month on my hosting account, so we are going to fly through this one as fast as possible because I refuse to not do an episode for you guys, but I just don't have the space for a long one. So, start off very quickly with my weekly geekery. I finished up Walking Dead Season 6 this past week on Netflix, and I really liked it. Though I will say it was odd to have a Negan that doesn't drop an F-bomb every other word. But it's still cool. I think Jeffrey D. Morgan is going to do a really good job. I also finished up Shadow of Mordor, that Lord of the Rings video game that's, as I understand it, sort of a cross between Assassin's Creed and the Batman Arkham games. I really liked that one too. I put a decent amount of time into it, but I felt like the ending didn't take a whole lot of work. I mean, I was playing it on easy, but it felt like defeating the last guys wasn't really any more difficult than any other normal boss battle in the game. I also started listening to the Black Tapes podcast, which is this, what's the best way of calling it? A fictional podcast. So it's a fictional story, but it's presented as a real podcast of a woman who's investigating the unsolvable cases of a skeptic. So this guy is out to disprove the paranormal, but he's had a few cases that he can't figure out yet. And so she goes out either with him or on her own, and she has her podcast and interviews people to try and find what really happened. It's cool. And I will say I'm only a couple episodes in, and the writing is a little stiff in some places, but it's really well produced, and you can tell they put a lot of work into it. So as far as a sort of spooky podcast goes, I'm really enjoying it. If there's a better one out there, though, if there's a horror podcast you think I should definitely listen to, because I'm trying to get my spooky up for Halloween, let me know. Also, I found out that I can read Hoopla comics. Hoopla is the app that lets me borrow comics digitally from my local library. I found out I can actually read those comics on my laptop via web browser. So I don't have to use my cell phone and the smartphone app that makes me read them panel by panel. And finally, I guess it's not really weekly geekery, but finally, note before we go in, a very special happy birthday to my nephew. I understand that he listens to it on a regular basis along with his dad, my brother, and I super appreciate that. I think that's very cool. So, happy birthday, Jack. News! Let's blow through some news, folks. First up, Marvel Comics. Now, by now, most folks know that Captain America Steve Rogers is a sleeper Hydra agent. Cosmic cube, reality, warping, blah, blah, blah. Just go with it. So now we have another big plot point revealed. So this is in just comic book news. We have learned that the death of Bruce Banner, aka the Hulk, I guess spoilers, that was in a previous episode, is actually kind of Captain America's fault, even though it was Hawkeye that actually did the deed. Plot! Captain America is further a bad guy. Next up in Marvel comic news, Friday, October 28th will henceforth be known as Stan Lee Day in Los Angeles, in honor of the man himself and his amazing works and what he's brought to entertainment, what he specifically brought to Los Angeles. Friday, October 28th is also the first day of this year's Stan Lee's Los Angeles Comic-Con. So they are honoring him with his own day. Marvel movie news. Doctor Strange spoilers here. So 3, 2, 1. It sounds like the Eye of Agamotto, that amulet that Doctor Strange wears, may actually contain an Infinity Stone. This is mostly confirmed, but not entirely. We've heard varying things about how much they're going to get into the Infinity Stone kind of thing here. The prop designer, I believe it was, said that it contains a stone and that they tried a bunch of different stones. So right now the thought out there is it's the Time Gem, one of the 2 gems we haven't seen yet. Yeah, or I'm sorry, the Time Stone, because they're Infinity Stones, which is so dumb. They're gems, the Infinity Gems. Anyway. And also, I believe I only saw a headline while I was flying through news. It sounds like we are confirmed to see Doctor Strange in Avengers Infinity War, so yay. Another piece of Stan Lee news as far as movies go, master of cameos, and the wife actually clued me in on this one, which was cool, and I found it online. He did 4 cameos in one day. And the original thought was, oh no, are they worried that he's like getting old or sick? And no, that doesn't seem to be the case. We just have a lot of Marvel movies coming. We're getting Doctor Strange, Guardians 2, Spider-Man Homecoming, and Thor Ragnarok. So Stan Lee did all 4 of his cameos for all 4 of those movies in the same day. So go Stan. DC news, going straight to TV news, Smallville. If you never saw it, it was the story of Clark Kent growing up and discovering his powers. It certainly went a lot longer than it needed to, but you can see all 10 seasons starting October 1st, streaming via Hulu. The show did have, I will say, some really high highs and really low lows. There were some episodes that you just sort of cringe through the whole thing. So, my thought is, if you have the time, check it out, because overall it was a good show. It did a lot of sort of monster of the week things with villains. So I would think, do the Void thing, find a list of the best episodes out there, the best 10 episodes, 20 episodes, whatever, and watch through the show that way. And I think that'll actually be a really rewarding experience. Indie comics and whatever. The Tick. It had a pilot over on Amazon. I hope you enjoyed it, because it looks like it is getting a full series order, which will also air on Amazon. I think the pilot is still on there for free. I'll throw up a link in the show notes again if it is, and you can go check that out and know that a whole series is coming. And that's it for news. On to reviews. Reviews. Starting off at DC with Hal Jordan and the GL Corps number 5. The stage seems pretty much set for the formerly missing Lanterns and Hal Jordan to finally meet, I think. It looks like they're all going to get together, finally assault Warworld, home of evil Yellow Lantern Sinestro. I'm thinking maybe it'll be 2 issues, depending on how much action they want to pack in there. And then my guess is that'll be the end of the first arc. There's some interesting themes, some interesting stuff going on with Hal here. So I'm curious to see what's going to happen, because one way or the other at the end of this first arc, we will have our new status quo for what the Green Lanterns will be in the universe. Next up is Wonder Woman number 7. This issue brings us back to the modern storyline, as it's following, jumping back and forth between a storyline taking place today and one that's her origin story. Some more really good character moments at the beginning, where Wonder Woman releases these captured girls, and her first thing she tells them is how brave they are and how they should, take that strength and hold on to it. It's some very girl power stuff in this issue. The short version, spoilers on this one, they defeat the big bad guy. They do it with sort of a big, girl power kind of moment. And then Cheetah actually gets reverted back to human form as a result. I will say it did feel almost kind of rushed. Like, I was expecting something more of like a Thor God of Thunder, like this issue is going to be a big fight, but it really wasn't. Like, the fight seemed to last only a couple of pages, and this is this giant ancient god creature that she's fighting. So I felt like we could have done with a little more action. I'm still okay with her defeating them through sort of the strength of these other girls that were kidnapped and stuff. There's a whole thing with her lasso, and it was very cool. It was a very nice, very Wonder Woman moment. I just would have liked a little more action leading up to that. Next up, we go indie over with Saga, number 38. The story continues on. We actually lose a main character that's been with us, I think, since the start, or nearly the start. So that's kind of a big deal. And I'm still just feeling like this is a story best enjoyed in trade format. I am still having trouble. I feel like the moment should have had a heavier emotional impact. But because I'm only reading it month to month, and sometimes there's gaps between when they're published, I don't get the resonation of those big moments, because, you're just doing your best to even remember what had happened before. Next up, we have Wytches, which I think I misspelled last episode. Wytches, by Scott Snyder and art by Jock. Definitely an interesting art style, where it's like the scenes are drawn in kind of an indie style. I'm really bad when it comes to describing art. So sort of like The Walking Dead, where it's definitely comic book art, but it's not like cartoony, but it's also not drawn to be incredibly realistic. Except then on pages that deal with magic or with the witches or whatever, they're then suddenly like splashed all over with color to the point where it's almost hard to make out the drawings. It makes you confusing, and you're trying to figure out what it is you're looking at. And I think that's the point. It's to sort of confuse you and stir up the brain at points where the book itself is stressful. I enjoyed it. It was a good sort of take on this weird myth. I feel like it would have made a very cool horror film, and who knows, maybe it will. And I believe it continues after this first volume. The story itself, they definitely left it open for a second volume. So I look forward when that comes out in trade format, and I'll borrow it from the library again. Finally, the Black Monday Murders, which was suggested a couple episodes by Saga from Two British Nerds. I got a hold of the first issue. It is long. It's like a 50-some page issue. It's very cool. I'm definitely going to go and pick up the second issue now. Basically, the take on it is the world's largest finance company and bank is kept successful through black magic. And it's controlled just by members of a couple very powerful families. Even in the first issue, you get some of that backstory. It starts out at the stock market crash in 1929, which is known as Black Thursdays when it started, and then everything really went down on Black Tuesday. So I'm still not sure why this is called the Black Monday Murders, but that could be because I'm forgetting something that happened in the book if it was on a Monday. In any case, it's a very dark book, but it's tying up this whole money and power thing with magic, which is pretty neat. And that is reviews. So shabalamalama ding dong poll list. Next week I'm looking at Green Lanterns number 8, Paper Girls number 10, Walking Dead 159, and then Marvel is moving into its Marvel Now thing, so it's listed as Now Doctor Strange number 12, and then Now Jessica Jones number 1, which I'm definitely picking up because I really enjoyed the original Alias run by Brian Michael Bendis. I didn't ever read The Pulse, which was sort of the sequel he did. But in any case, looking forward to that. And then just for Beej, over at the Geek to Geek podcast, he was excited for this book, Champions number 1, sort of this new teenage super team with Miles Morales, Spider-Man, and Miss Marvel and Nova. I will pick that up and I will review it. I don't expect it to be a regular read, but just for Professor Beej, I will go ahead and read that one. And then Black Monday Murders number 2, I'm going to go pick up. And with the new month starting over, I get more things I can borrow from the library. So I think I might go pick up Volume 2 of American Vampire, or otherwise looking for another horror comic. So if there's something out there you guys think my library might have that I should definitely read to keep myself in the Halloween spirit, let me know. Junk archive. I'm just not even trying with those. Officially kicking off Halloween theme stuff because I love Halloween. I absolutely love Halloween. I like scary things and spooky things. So I'm going to give you 3 archive picks that are the DC Comics classic horror mashups. So the first one is Batman Red Rain, which is the first of, I believe, 3 graphic novels where Batman exists in the same world as Dracula and may or may not have gotten bitten and needs to deal with the consequences of that. Then there is Batman Castle of the Bat, which is this very weird Batman Frankenstein mashup that I have on my shelf, but I do not know the last time I read it. So I'll probably read that this week again. And then Justice League Island of Dr. Moreau, which is equally weird and actually has very little to do with the Justice League. It's just sort of the human-animal hybrids he creates, if you know this, the Island of Dr. Moreau story, are loosely based on the Justice League. But they're all classic Elseworlds where sort of familiar characters thrown into very weird situations. And so those are my suggestions as we kick off a month of spooky-themed archive picks. Bop ba da doop 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 twain dabba dip doop doop chicka doop doop dip bop bop doop bop doop doop topic of the week. Just kidding, we don't have time. So the topic of the week is time. Why you punish me? Because I don't have time to do a topic of the week. So that's it. That's it for this week, everybody. Please, as always, star ratings and reviews on iTunes and Stitcher and Google Play and heck, YouTube. We're on YouTube as well. You can find us on YouTube at geektogeekcast, I think. Head over there, or you can potentially search for the Comic Box, and it might come up. I don't know. I guess I don't actually have the Comic Box in the titles of my things I post. I should figure that out. Anywhere that you listen to me, like me, make your friends like me. Star ratings, reviews always help. All of our podcasts. This is part of the Geek to Geek Podcast Network. You can sign up for updates on all of our amazing shows at geektogeekcast.net. If you want to talk to me, send some suggestions my way or just talk comics. I am on Twitter at Rob's Comic Box. Otherwise, I have a personal account as well, which is at Knowby, at KNOWBY. If you want to talk about anything not related to comics or see my posts about root beers and that sort of thing, I have 2 more new root beers from my last acquisition, and I'll probably enjoy one of them tonight, so you'll see a tweet from me. I'm always posting. I'm up to, with these last 2, I think I'll have 40 different brands of root beer that I have tasted and have bottles in my collection. So, just a thing I like to do. And then Reddit. You guys! Professor Beej started a Geek to Geekcast subreddit, so you can search for Geek to Geekcast. Come talk comic books with me. I started a thread over there that's just about talking about comic books. So I will do my best to keep up with it. I'm not normally a Redditor, but when it comes to talking comics, it's not like I'm not going to be there. Hit me up on Twitter. Hit me up on Reddit. Email me at thecomicboxpodcast@gmail.com. My word, there are so many different places that you can get a hold of me. There is no excuse for you to not. Tell me what your favorite horror comic is of all time. Tell me what your favorite comic book coming out of this new Marvel Now is going to be. Tell me what you're excited about for Luke Cage, which is going to start up, I believe, the day after I'm recording this, or 2 days after I'm recording this. So look forward to that next week. Next week, we're going to be talking Luke Cage, I'm sure. So until then, this is me closing the comic box with a shibby-doop-a-doo-doom bow ba-ba-da-ba-da-ba-doom for the comic box. Short episode this week, but next week, probably going to be a long one, because we're talking Luke Cage. That's it. Extra thing? No time! No time for extra thing!